Hello, and a warm welcome to the Military Chessboard.
Great to be here.
If you've been looking for a place where we can just, sit down, strip away the noise of the 24-hour news cycle, and just look at the raw moves on the global map, well, you have found it.
Spot on.
I am your host for the channel, and today we are going to try and answer a question that sounds simple on the surface, but is actually incredibly complex. In a world this connected, can any conflict truly remain local?
It is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And looking at the way the pieces are moving right now, I reckon the answer increasingly seems to be a resounding no.
It really does. I'm joined by our resident expert across the desk from me today to help us unpack all of this. It's great to have you back in the studio.
Always a pleasure. Morgan Jones here, by the way, and I'm very keen to dive into this. Looking at the stack of source reports we have to get through today, connected is probably the understatement of the year.
Absolutely. Today, we are going on a bit of a journey for this deep dive. We are going to start with a massive escalation in Ukraine, and I mean massive.
Right.
Then we are going to follow the money to a pipeline in Kazakhstan that has the United States government sweating, take a detour through a very divided United States Congress to see how domestic arguments affect global wars, and finally, we'll end up in the waters off Cuba where things have turned deadly.
It sounds like four completely isolated stories when you list them out like that, but they are absolutely symptoms of the same world in flux.
Right, so let's get right into it. Our mission today for you listening is to analyze these escalations without the jargon, just looking at the facts. We want to keep this practical, slow-paced, and easy to understand.
Excellent.
And we have to start with this report coming out of the Donetsk region. We often hear about artillery and drones in this war, but this is something different. We are talking about a 3-ton aerial bomb.
Yeah, that is a massive shift. This is a significant escalation in terms of raw firepower. We are looking at a specific event near Oksakov in the Donetsk region. The Russian military dropped what's known as a FA-B3000, literally a 3-ton aerial bomb, specifically targeting a dam.
3 tons. I want to pause there for a second because it's really hard to wrap your head around that number.
It is full on.
I mean, most people think of a standard 500-pound bomb when they think of airstrikes. This is 12 times the size of that. Trying to visualize that is not a precision strike to take out a single tank. That is a landscape-altering event.
Precisely. And that is the key takeaway from the intelligence here. When you drop something that heavy, you are not just targeting enemy troops, you are targeting the geography itself. The explosion destroyed the dam, and as you can imagine, straight away that caused massive immediate flooding in the entire area.
And help us understand the tactical reason for that. I mean, why blow up a dam? Is it just to cause chaos, or is there a specific military objective behind turning a valley into a lake?
It is never just chaos. In this kind of warfare, it is always about logistics. Specifically, the floodwaters from that dam completely submerged the road leading to Ruskova.
Ruskova.
Right. And Ruskova isn't just a random town. That road was the primary lifeline for the Ukrainian garrison stationed on the right bank of the city. By flooding it, the Russians have effectively cut off their ability to resupply.
So you can't drive supply trucks through a flood.
No, you cannot.
And you certainly can't move heavy armor through the deep mud that follows.
Exactly. If you can't get ammunition in, and crucially, you can't get wounded personnel out, the position becomes untenable very quickly. And if we zoom out and look at the broader map, this isn't an isolated incident.
Right. I saw another report in the notes.
Yeah. If you look at the reports from the northwest suburbs of Konstantinivka, a major bridge was also destroyed recently.
So if we put those two ants together, the dam explosion near Oksakov and the bridge destruction near Konstantinivka, what does that actually tell you about the Russian strategy right now?
A very clear pattern emerges. The Russian forces are probing, they are testing the defense belt, but more importantly, they are shaping the battlefield. They are creating these localized logistical nightmares to soften up the Ukrainian positions before what looks like a potential push toward Konstantinivka.
They're making it impossible for the defenders to maneuver before the main fight even starts.
That is the goal. It marks a definite shift toward much heavier, more destructive tactics. They aren't just fighting the soldiers anymore. They are erasing the infrastructure that keeps those soldiers alive.
That is a grim picture of the kinetic side of the war bombs, floods, broken bridges. But here is where it gets really interesting and honestly a little complicated. We had this source report about a diplomatic spat between the United States and Ukraine. Now, usually we think of them as being in lockstep, right? We assume Washington and Kyiv are on the exact same page.
Usually, yes.
Hmm.
But energy changes the equation entirely. Energy complicates friendships.
Right. So, according to the reports, the Trump administration sent a formal note, a warning to Ukraine. And the message was essentially, stop hitting Russian oil infrastructure in the Black Sea.
Spot on.
Specifically, they were told to stay away from the port of Novorossiysk. Explain this to me because it sounds like a complete paradox. Why is the United States protecting a Russian port?
I know, it does sound counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why protect the revenue stream of the adversary you are paying billions of dollars to defeat? But if you pull up Novorossiysk on the map, you find the answer straight away. It is the termination point of the CPC pipeline.
The Caspian Pipeline Consortium.
That's the one.
Okay, so it's a pipeline, but doesn't that pipeline carry Russian oil?
That is the critical detail. It actually carries a massive amount of oil from Kazakhstan. It just happens to travel through Russian territory and terminate at a Russian port on the Black Sea. But the oil itself, it is Kazakh. And more importantly, you have to ask who has billions of dollars invested in drilling that Kazakh oil.
Well, I have a feeling you are going to tell me it's not the Russians.
You'd be right. It is American companies. Major players like Chevron and ExxonMobil have massive stakes in those oil fields in Kazakhstan. So when Ukraine uses sea drones to attack that port in Novorossiysk to hurt Russia, they are inadvertently threatening the profits and the physical infrastructure of major American corporations.
That is a fascinating conflict of interest. So Ukraine's strategy is perfectly logical from a military standpoint. Cut off Russia's money to stop the war machine?
Right.
But doing so steps right on the toes of their biggest allies' economic interests.
It is a massive tightrope walk. The Ukrainian ambassador, Ola Stepanya, actually made a really poignant comment about this specific situation. She noted that Washington issued this formal protest specifically because the attacks disrupted operations affecting United States interests.
And I imagine she wasn't particularly happy about it.
No, not at all. She lamented that Ukraine doesn't have that same kind of leverage. She basically said she wished Ukraine had the exact same protection that Kazakhstan enjoys, simply because American money is parked there. It is a harsh reality check on how geopolitics actually works behind closed doors. Money often talks a lot louder than military strategy.
It's raw pragmatism. And this energy tension isn't just happening with the United States, is it? It seems like this issue of oil is spilling over into Europe as well, according to the sources.
It is. It's causing massive friction. We have seen Ukraine restricting oil flows, specifically the Lukoil shipments that pass through their territory, and that has made Hungary and Slovakia absolutely furious.
Oh, I remember seeing the headlines about that. Hungary actually blocked a massive European Union aid package because of it, right?
Yes, a 90 billion euro proposal was blocked by Hungary in retaliation, and Slovakia stopped emergency electricity exports to Ukraine. It's like a domino effect.
Incredible.
Ukraine pulls a lever to hurt Russia's wallet, and suddenly they're getting hit by their own European allies who rely on that exact same energy.
It really highlights the complexity of the chessboard we're talking about. Ukraine is trying to survive a war for its very existence, but the global energy web is so tight that when they thrash around to defend themselves, they end up hitting the people holding their lifeline.
That is the perfect way to describe it. It is the law of unintended consequences played out on a continental scale.
Well, speaking of people holding the lifeline, let's pivot our attention to the United States itself. Because while all of this is happening abroad, the dams blowing up, the pipelines being threatened, the domestic situation in the U.S. is, well, let's call it intense.
Intense is certainly one word for it. We are looking at the fallout from President Trump's State of the Union address.
I looked at the runtime on that speech in the source material. It was a record breaker, 108 minutes.
A marathon.
That is a long time to stand and clap, regardless of what your politics are.
It really was. But what was fascinating to me, looking at it as an analyst, wasn't just the length, but what he focused on. And perhaps more importantly, what he deliberately didn't focus on. He went very heavy on national security, immigration, and the economy, but foreign adversaries. Surprisingly quiet.
Yeah, I looked at the raw stats on that. China was mentioned only 6 times in 108 minutes. Russia, 7 times. Iran, 4 times. Compared to previous years, that is a huge drop. What does that signal to you?
It signals a massive shift inward. The focus is squarely on the border, on the economy at home, not on the other side of the world. But the atmosphere in that chamber, that is what tells the real story of American power right now.
Oh, absolutely. There was this one moment, the reports are calling it the trap. Trump asked the room to stand if they believe the government's first duty is to protect American citizens. not illegal immigrants.
And that was the moment the split screen became reality. You had the
Right.
Republicans standing and cheering for 2 full minutes, whistling, clapping, chanting, USA. And on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats sat in complete silence.
And it wasn't just silence everywhere. You had the progressive wing of the party, the group often referred to as the Squad, specifically Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, actually shouting that the administration was killing Americans.
Right, but their voices were almost entirely drowned out by the chants. It is incredible political theater, but the strategic implications are incredibly serious.
Right, because as we always say here, we don't take sides on domestic politics, but we have to analyze what it means for the global map.
Exactly. This isn't just a difference of opinion on tax rates or healthcare policy. This is a display of 2 completely incompatible worldviews operating in the same room. You have a nationalist, border security focus on one side, and a liberal multicultural view on the other.
And this goes right back to our earlier point about Ukraine and global strategy. And how does a country maintain a coherent, long-term foreign policy when its own government is this polarized?
It is incredibly difficult. If you are an ally looking at the United States right now, you have to be wondering, which America am I dealing with today? The internal division acts like a handbrake on their ability to project power effectively.
We saw this contrast with Biden's Soul of the Nation speech previously, and now this State of the Union.
Right. It is a pendulum swinging wildly between 2 extremes.
So we have a physical war in Ukraine, an economic tug-of-war over oil in Eurasia, and a political war in the halls of Congress. But there is one more flashpoint we need to cover today, and it is much, much closer to American shores. Let's talk about Cuba.
This is a situation that I think is flying under the radar for a lot of people, but it is absolutely critical. We're looking at a maritime incident that happened on February 25th.
This reads like something out of a thriller movie. A speedboat registered in Florida, the source gives the exact registration number, FL7726 enters Cuban waters near Villa Clara.
And it did not end well. This wasn't a pleasure cruise. We are likely talking about a boat involved in smuggling, whether that's people or goods. The Cuban border guards intercepted it, and a full-on shootout ensued.
A shootout?
Yes. 4 people on the boat were killed and 6 were wounded.
That is a very high body count for a border intercept. And naturally, the political reaction in the United States was immediate.
Straight away, Senator Marco Rubio and Representative Carlos Gimenez immediately condemned the Cuban regime. They're actually comparing it to the 1996 shoot-down of those civilian planes by the Cuban Air Force. It is inflaming tensions that were already simmering.
But why now? What is the broader context here? Because Cuba has been relatively quiet in the major news cycle until recently. Why do you think it's getting so desperate on the island?
It comes back to the main theme of our deep dive today, energy. We call it the squeeze. You have to look at why Cuba is failing systematically right now. Their energy lifelines, namely Venezuela and Mexico, have been heavily pressured by the United States to stop or drastically reduce their oil shipments to the island.
So they're literally running out of gas.
In every sense of the word. The reports coming out of Havana are incredibly grim. Commercial planes are stuck on runways because there is simply no jet fuel to fly them. Garbage is piling up in the streets of Havana because the municipal garbage trucks can't run without diesel.
And here is the detail from the source material that really stuck with me. The cigar festival. The famous Cuban cigar festival was canceled or postponed because the agriculture sector is failing without fuel.
Yeah.
When you can't even host your signature cultural event that brings in vital foreign cash, you know things are bad.
It is a glaring sign of systemic collapse. And in geopolitics, nature abhors a vacuum. With the United States squeezing them this hard, guess who showed up to offer a hand?
The Russians again.
Exactly. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, visited Havana. He publicly called the U.S. blockade illegal and promised Russian support. So, just like that, we are right back to great power competition in the Caribbean.
It feels like the Cold War all over again. But is there any diplomatic off-ramp here? I read in the notes that President Trump claims negotiations are happening.
There is a lot of confusion there, honestly. Trump has stated publicly that negotiations are ongoing, but other intelligence sources suggest that Marco Rubio, who's notoriously hawkish on Cuba, might actually be blocking real progress behind the scenes while telling the president that things are moving forward.
Interesting.
It sounds like a classic case of bureaucratic infighting within Washington.
There was one tiny glimmer of light, though, regarding the energy situation. The U.S. Treasury recently allowed some Venezuelan oil to go to Cuba.
They did, but with a massive, almost impossible catch. It is only allowed if it strictly helps the private sector. not the military, not the government.
How do you even police that? I mean,
Yeah,
here is a barrel of oil. Please ensure only a private taxi driver uses it.
exactly. It is a practically impossible line to draw in a highly centralized state like Cuba. But it shows that the United States knows if they squeeze the island too hard, the whole place might implode, or worse, fully embrace Russia as a military ally again. It's a very dangerous game of chicken.
So let's pull back and look at the whole board for a second. We started today with a flooded valley in Donetsk, where a 3-ton bomb changed the physical map.
Right.
We looked at a pipeline in Kazakhstan that is causing massive headaches in Washington. We saw a polarized Congress where half the room won't even stand for the other. And we ended in a dark, fuel-starved Havana, where a maritime shootout just left 4 people dead.
And the common thread running through every single one of those events is energy, strategy, and political will.
It really is.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are seeing is that the military chessboard isn't just about moving tanks or soldiers around a field anymore. It's about how a localized decision in one corner, like a U.S. sanction on Venezuelan oil, can eventually lead to a deadly shootout off the coast of Cuba. Or how protecting an American oil company's profits can actually tie the hands of the Ukrainian military halfway around the world.
Everything is linked. You pull a string over here and a knot tightens over there.
Precisely. And for you, the listener, the ultimate takeaway is to stop looking at these as separate, isolated news stories. They are chapters in the exact same book. The global energy crisis is driving the military strategy, and domestic politics is driving the energy policy.
It's a loop.
It is. You cannot understand the war in Ukraine without understanding the price of oil in Kazakhstan or the political deadlock in D.C.
That is a very powerful way to frame it. It is not just chaos. It is a system. A very volatile system, but a system nonetheless.
And one that is heating up by the day, unfortunately.
Well, on that note, we are going to wrap up this deep dive. But before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about, something we didn't explicitly cover today.
Oh, I like these.
If energy is the ultimate weapon right now, and Western sanctions are squeezing these nations so tightly, are we inadvertently accelerating a future where these sanctioned countries build a completely parallel financial and energy system? One that completely bypasses the U.S. dollar.
Now, that is the question to ponder.
We really want to hear your thoughts on this. Please click that like button if you found this breakdown useful, and drop a comment below. Tell us, do you think the energy crisis will force a change in the war before the soldiers do?
And don't forget to subscribe to Military Chessboard. We have a lot more deep dive analysis coming your way, and you really won't want to miss it.
Thank you for trusting us with your time today. Stay curious.
And stay safe.
See you in the next deep dive.